Hello! Hopefully that worked. Jonny Skywatcher here. I'm trying something a little bit different. I am actually holding my mic up because I think in the videos I've been doing in the past, it's actually not the mic placement, which I have not a professional mic really, I guess. Maybe semi-professional? I don't know. It's better than just what I usually use. Or what I used in the past, but it still does not seem all that great. Biggest problem is it works a whole lot better from what I've been doing in tests and stuff if it's actually close the way it's supposed to be. You know, it's supposed to be somewhere around here, I think, and usually it's more like way out here, which it can still pick up my voice, but it doesn't sound very good, and hopefully this doesn't sound like utter crap either. I tested it. It sounded way better like this, so I'm going to try it holding it like... Anyway, totally nonsensical beginning. I haven't done a video in a very long time, so I just wanted to do something, and let's talk about Wonder Woman, I guess. And if you haven't watched this before, this is a very loose format. You know, I'm not getting paid to do this, so I can do it however I want to do it, right? And so I've been trying to find a sort of format that works for me. Honestly, I would prefer if I could live chat or voice chat with someone else and have more of a discussion format, but I don't really know anyone to do that with, and so I'm just kind of going with what I have. So Wonder Woman 1984 came out this last, what week is last week on Christmas Day, and it came out in theaters and on HBO Max, and well, in areas that have HBO Max available. So I am in New York City, and there are still no movie theaters open here. They never open up here in the city. I think maybe late summer or early fall, there were movie theaters open in the state of New York, but never in New York City. Now, it is possible if I really wanted to, I could go to, say, New Jersey, but I'm not risking it to go all the way to New Jersey just to see Wonder Woman. And it's not that important. This isn't like, I don't know, seeing Avengers Endgame. So yeah, going into this movie, I feel like I didn't have as high of expectations as a lot of people. I don't know if I really thought about how well I thought this movie would do, especially critically, going in beforehand. I did read a lot of people not liking it. I didn't really read too much into specifics or spoilers or whatever before seeing it. And I just knew that, that a lot of people were not very happy about this movie. And so I kind of just, went within with a fresh attitude. And I have to say I actually enjoyed I enjoyed watching it. I will say, however, that I can see a lot of people's points when I can understand there's sort of where people are coming from with their criticisms of this movie, because I don't really disagree with the things a lot of people are saying. When they point out a lot of things that just, that didn't make sense, or I kind of realized that that's kind of weird. But just watching it for the first time, I haven't watched it a second time, so I don't know necessarily how I'll view it as a second time. Watching the first time, it was enjoyable. I enjoyed watching it. You know, I did subscribe to HBO Max in order to get it for 1 month. I will not be letting that go beyond 1 month, because I'm just going to watch everything I want. I'm in the process of watching several different things I want to watch on HBO Max, and then I'm cutting it off then and there. But yeah, that was part of the reason why, one of the reasons why I was willing to watch it on HBO Max was that I can watch all this other stuff. And compared to like renting, I know they did the some movies on video demand this last year for like $20 home premiere, and then you had the whole Mulan situation on Disney Plus with the premium access for $30. Yeah, that's a lot more versus Wonder Woman 1984. I paid $15, but not just for Wonder Woman. I get to watch everything else I want to watch on HBO Max. So, I mean, that's a lot more content. I don't know how Warner Brothers is making money on that deal. I think they're losing a lot of money, and maybe I'll take a look at how that's kind of working out. I mean, part of the thing is, other than knowing, unlike Mulan, where we didn't even have a domestic box office to look at, you know, we have a domestic box office to look at. For Wonder Woman, it's not that great. It's not as, I mean, you kind of have to take into account the fact that it's being released during a pandemic. You know, it's done better than any other movie. But then also, I think you kind of have to assume that the fact that it's being released on HBO Max at the same time is hindering its box office potential of what it could be even in a pandemic. So yeah, back to my thoughts on the movie. I've listened to a lot of criticisms on YouTube and read various things, and I don't really disagree with anything. I just, at the end of the day, I enjoyed it. But I would say I don't really feel the need or a strong interest to watch it a second time either. You know, it's I mean, maybe I'll watch it a second time before my HBO Max subscription goes away. But yeah, I don't feel the need to really. It was kind of a very light movie. I definitely feel like it's not the kind of movie people expected, especially it's not the sequel people expected, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It definitely has a lot of kind of weird things going on with the plot. Some things that definitely don't necessarily seem to line up, and almost seem like maybe there were some reshoots. I don't remember hearing much about this film's production. I do know that it was originally supposed to come out in 2019, and it got delayed. And I know some people are already thinking that maybe this film was in trouble because of that. And I don't remember hearing if any like behind the scenes drama or anything like that, or like anything about the reshoots. I'm assuming a film like this had reshoots, but I don't remember really hearing anything about it. So I don't know if it had a situation like Rogue Squadron, where, you know, the end of the movie got changed. Just hearing noises outside. I'm trying to. But I was watching the movie, and there even while watching it the first time, there was a scene when she gets the armor, when she learns to fly, and then she gets the armor. It is a little weird, I felt like, because it seems like she's flying. She goes through that whole flying montage, and she learns to fly. When she took off, I think she was in Washington, and then she goes and gets the armor, which is also in Washington, and then she flies off to where that bunker or whatever place where Maxwell Lord was, wherever they went to. But why? It kind of seems like that's some editing thing, like after the fact, or something got changed, because why did she fly and then get the armor? Which I thought the armor was also in DC. It seems like she flew, but she didn't really go anywhere, and then she got the armor and then flew somewhere. Almost, it kind of really seems like that. I'm guessing there was some reshoot thing there. Either the whole thing of her learning to fly was a reshoot, or I don't know, some weird thing. I could see either way of that going. Maybe it was supposed to be earlier in the film or something. I feel like something got shuffled around, and then also you have different things like that. And as far as the whole, I mean, obviously I'm talking spoilers here. Sorry if you didn't know that. As far as the whole it being around wishes, yeah, I could see how a lot of people didn't like it. I didn't mind it. You know, I kind of just took it as it is. And one of my major thoughts on this film is it definitely seems like I remember Patty Jenkins saying in an interview that she didn't want to so much make a sequel to the first Wonder Woman movie, as she wanted to make just another Wonder Woman movie, not something that feels so much as like a sequel. And I think in a lot of ways that you can kind of see that, you know, it doesn't really feel like a true sequel as compared to a lot of other comic book movies. And other than really the element of Steve Trevor and I guess maybe that beginning sequence also feels like something that could have come out of the first Wonder Woman movie. Everything else of this feels like you could just say that this isn't connected at all, and I would believe you. You know, everything, and I think that's one of the things that's maybe pretty jarring for a lot of people. Is this does not feel like a true sequel to the first Wonder Woman movie, other than the fact that it has the same actress, and it brings back Steve Trevor, and then, like I said, that first sequence of Themyscira with Wonder Woman as a young girl, that feels like it could have come out from the first movie. But yeah, so it's an interesting film in that way. I feel like they were trying to do something very different. It does feel like it ran into a lot of plotting issues, and one of the things I've seen a lot of people bring up is the fact that the people who wrote the screenplay on the first one are not the same people on this one. And I think Patty Jenkins was one of the screenwriters on this. At least, you know, in Hollywood, I don't always know. Just because they have one person or two people, there's usually more people behind the scenes that you don't necessarily know about. But obviously, she was a big part of this film's story in the way she wasn't with the first one. So it seems like this one had a lot more plot issues, like things that just don't necessarily make sense or like kind of weird. I don't know if they got overly thought over or there's some sort of back and forth. The other thing that's been mentioned by a lot of people was the fact that Steve Trevor, when Diana wishes him back, he doesn't just appear out of nowhere, which there's no reason that couldn't have happened. No, he has to come back and he takes over somebody else's body. And the film goes into great detail to make sure that you know that it is not Steve Trevor literally back, but he's in someone else's body. and then Diana sort of violates this guy because it's to her it's Steve Trevor, that's a little weird. And so yeah, and it's just the kind of question, I guess. I don't think I've seen it asked to any of the correct creators yet. Is why go into that sort of questionable area when you could have just had Steve appear out of nowhere? Now, maybe it's a screenwriting thing where they really seem to have brought Steve back for the purpose of sort of mirroring what happened in the first movie, right? With Diana being introduced by Steve to the world of Matt, and that sort of fish out of water thing. Now it's Steve in the quote modern world of 1984 being the fish out of water, and I think that's one of the main things they were going for. But you didn't need to have Steve in someone else's body to do that. I mean, it did make I guess the way they set it up, the whole clothing sequence a little bit easier because it's just there. But no, I mean, that doesn't even make sense from a script. You could easily do something the way they did in the first Wonder Woman movie. Steve is dressed up in a certain way when he just comes out of nowhere, and she's like, "No, we need to get you some different clothes," and then they go to a clothing store. You could have had even more mall action that way. So I don't think that makes sense either. So yeah, the question is why do it that way? Maybe they just they really thought people were gonna be like, how can you can't bring Steve back? He's dead. It doesn't make any sense. No. It's okay, guys. We're not really literally bringing him back from the dead. He's just in the body of someone else, so it's okay. I don't know. I mean, obviously, the whole Wishing Stone had no trouble making an entire wall appear out of nowhere from nothing, or nukes appear out of nowhere, or anything else. But just bringing Steve Trevor back like that, no, it has to be in a specific way. Even though I don't know, it seems kind of weird. Anyway, I say that way too much. Let's go to see if I can. I did want to take a look at some of the reviews and see what people are saying. And so Wonder Woman 1984, it's at 61%. So 61% of critics' reviews are positive, at least semi-positive to totally positive. And just because people seem to always need to be reminded about what Rotten Tomatoes does, 61% does not mean that the film is rated 6 out of 10. This means that 61% of the critics gave it a positive review. Now, that positive review could be just a very mediocre, well, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, 5.1 out of 10, or it could be glowing. You have to look at the individual reviews. Now, according to this, and if you can look at the average rating, which I would assume would be the average of all the different blank out of 10 ratings, if you convert them to blank out of 10, because I don't think even all critic ratings are out of 10. And then it's 6.2. And then one question I have, which I haven't really, I don't know, you'd have to do a deep dive, is how many times is this different at all, or disagreed? Because I really think, the percentage, you would expect to see at times a difference between the amount of critics who gave it a a favorable rating versus the overall average of the rating. But you usually don't see much of a difference. And I don't know why that is. And that's out of 352. So let's just take a look at some of these critic reviews. Okay. Let's look for Chris Stuckman. I know who that is. CNN. Wonder Woman 1984 gets dragged down by his uninspired villains. The adage that a heroic movie is only as good as its villains has never felt truer than in Wonder Woman 1984, and those villains simply aren't very good. Okay, well, let's talk about the villains then. So, Cheetah and Maxwell Lord. I feel like, definitely in this movie, is not like other superhero movies. And to a certain extent, I agree with people's criticisms of that, but I think also you have to look at the fact that they were trying to do something a little bit different. This movie doesn't have a sort of typical supervillain fight, especially, halfway through this movie. This does not follow the same kind of superhero plot we're used to. There's a lot of not much happening, which I don't think it's necessarily fair to just say completely that that's bad. That, you have to have every superhero movie has to be like a Marvel movie, and every half hour you have to shove in some sort of action sequence to make sure that people don't fall asleep. There's a lot of time spent in this movie with they're trying to, it's not very plot centric, and I think that's what people are more expecting with a superhero movie. Not just the fact that fights are happening, but it's very plot heavy, like stuff going from beat to beat to beat to the next beat. Whereas, like, even in this movie, and I think that goes to a lot of people's criticisms of, like, the character of Wonder Woman, how she doesn't really seem to react to much very fast, it does seem very much like, she's like, well, we need to go get Maxwell Lord, but it's not done in such a way like, okay, we need to go, and we need to go right now. It's like, okay, well, we need to go, but, like, it's kind of like they're on vacation. So, like, oh yeah, we should really check out this Maxwell Lord guy, but first, let's get some new clothes for you, and we're not rushing about this either. It's 9 a.m. We just need to be there by 5 p.m. To check on this Maxwell Lord guy, see what he's doing, because it doesn't sound good. And I think that never really changes in the film. And I think that's not really most people's cup of tea. Just watching it, I didn't really care. It feels very laid back. The whole film feels laid back in the way the way it's plotted, the way the pace of the film, the character of Wonder Woman seems very laid back, and that it didn't have a sense of urgency ever. Take the sequence when the invisible jet sequence, right? Now, a lot of people, complain, why is she suddenly able to do that? I don't care. They established in the first movie that she can do godlike things, and even though she doesn't seem to do much with it, she actually does do the invisibility thing. That I don't really care so much about. But the fact that they're going to get on the jet to go get Maxwell Lord, and it just felt like there was no sense of urgency. Like, it's not like, oh man, I don't know, it's just like, it was just very laid back in the way it felt in the film watching it, It's just like, okay, we need to go get Maxwell Lord, so we can't put you don't have a passport, which I didn't think of it at the time. I won't pretend that I noticed this, but I know someone on the internet pointed out that actually he may have had a passport, because the guy who Steve is bodies who he's inhabiting might have a passport, because he only looks like Steve Trevor to Wonder Woman. The film makes it very, he looks in the mirror and it's someone else. That guy might have had a passport. Maybe he didn't have a passport, but how would have Wonder Woman known that? I didn't think of that at the time while watching it, but yeah. And then the solution apparently is to steal a jet. When I was watching it, and now my voice is getting old. My throat's feeling so dry because I'm not used to talking this much. And when I was watching it, I thought at first that they were just going to maybe, she's been alive for decades. Who knows how much wealth she's amassed. I thought maybe this was her private airfield, or, her private, maybe she had this stuff. Who knows? No, apparently they're just stealing jet. And then partway through taking the jet, that's when she thinks about, wait, they have radar. Did you not think this through? Did I even said, while I was watching, he's like, that doesn't seem like a very good plan. Not a great plan. Yeah, Tony Stark GIF. Yeah, that it was kind of a lampshade moment, or almost, when she said, like, oh, I forgot about radar. But it's more of something, they put in the trailer and it was funny, but in the movie itself, it's just like, really, you didn't think this through at all. And it's just, there's just no tension in the scene. There's no, like, something is going to actually happen. There's no, like, at this point they're rushing to go to get Maxwell Lord, because they think he has the stone. They don't know that he wished to become the stone yet, and they know his wishes are starting to wreak havoc. But they don't. It's just puzzling, really. Like, what they do. It just has no sort of, like, in terms of pacing and how the film feels at that moment. There is no tension. It's like, this is just something they're doing. It was, and then that's why I go to say, like, if you just watch the film, like, just to watch a Wonder Woman movie, not even necessarily related to the first one, it's okay. It's not great. I definitely wouldn't. I don't necessarily think it's as bad as some people say. I mean, that's one of the things with the internet is the biggest voices you hear on the internet are people saying that either something is the greatest thing ever, or that something is the worst thing ever. And so I think there's been a lot of people saying how Wonder Woman 84 is terrible, the worst movie ever, which it's certainly not. It's not the worst movie. It's not the worst DCEU movie. Suicide Squad is way worse, in my opinion. In my opinion, if I were to rank the DCEU movies, Suicide Squad's on the bottom, just for its opening sequence alone, and the editing and the way it switches songs, and it's just so in my opinion, Suicide Squad is the worst DCEU movie. Even that, there's worse movies than Suicide Squad. Though I don't know. In my opinion, Suicide Squad is pretty bad, just as a movie in itself. In terms of, like, the portrayal of the characters, I was never that in love with Harley Quinn or Deadshot like a lot of people were. I think a lot of people even people who didn't like Suicide Squad, will still defend those portrayals of those characters, but not me. So I would say Wonder Woman 84, way better than that. I think it tries to do something different. The plot kind of, there's a lot of things you have to overlook to enjoy this movie, to be honest. I think it does have its good moments, and it's just one of those okay movies. Like I don't hate it, I don't love it, or I don't know. I have to see how I feel if I ever get around to watching it a second time. It's also, I put my foot in the wrong place. It's also one of those movies that, like, I don't know if I ever care that much about rewatching. So yeah, let me know. I don't know if I'll make this Wonder Woman rant its own video or not, but let me know what you thought in the comments below. And let me see. Do I want to talk about anything else? I went live with this, and the reason I always say this when I do live with videos, is the reason I do live videos is that if I sit down and try to make a script and just record a video, I will probably get about halfway and I will give up. And not just because it's tough, it's just because I don't know, I just, doing this by myself, I just start thinking of how stupid the idea I have is, and then the video just never comes along. So the only way I seem to be able to make content right now is by doing this. I just go live, and then you just start talking, and sometimes I am able to get something out of that and just make its own video, and sometimes I'm not. And inevitably, at least so far, with my YouTube journey, nobody watches. But then again, it's not like I'm making content on a regular enough basis to expect people to expect to be able to find an audience, And I do realize, I'm not doing this regularly enough to necessarily hope to get an audience. So what else? I don't know. I was looking for the other thing I wanted to talk about in regards to Wonder Woman, and that was how many people watched Wonder Woman, which of course, this is a streaming service, so we have no idea. We did have the one bit of information, which is the Wonder Woman, which is the Wonder Woman 1984 box office. So this is basically just the first weekend. And actually, you know what? I don't want to give Box Office Mojo. It kind of is not the best site to go to for information. So let's go somewhere better. Let's go to the numbers. Pretty much the same information, but it's a better website. So right now, it's worldwide box office after the first weekend is only 85 million. Now, I think compared to anything else that's come out since this whole pandemic thing started, it's the best, especially domestic. Well, actually, not. It's not the best. There's been Chinese movies that have gotten way more than that, but I would say maybe the Western releases, you could say, is the best of 2020. Domestic is definitely the top with it was 16.7 million, and hasn't been updated because Warner Brothers isn't sharing all of that information anymore. They're just doing by weekend like they were with Tenet, and I haven't seen anyone talk about that. Basically, that might be the new normal when it comes to Warner Brothers. They just don't want to tell you all the information. And I know it's a little bit more complicated than just Warner Brothers telling the information, but I think it's through some third source, and then that information gets available. Other studios are still doing that, and that's why you'll see for like the Croods, you still see daily box office information, but for Wonder Woman, you only see the weekend box office. That's why we only have basically the first weekend of information, which technically, when you take into account the international numbers, is the first over the second weekend worldwide, I think, because it was released the week before. So yes, 16.7 in North America, because they always combine US and Canada, which is higher than Tenet when you take into account that Tenet's 3-day weekend, because when Tenet was first released, Warner Brothers tried to make it sound like it was 20 million, but it actually wasn't that, because it was taking into account its earlier release in Canada, which for longer days, and its actual 3 days for when it was released in the US was like only 10 million, or a little bit less than 10 million, I think. So yes, it did much better in its 3-day than Tenet, but still, still pretty low. And I have to kind of believe that that's being affected by the fact that it's also available on HBO Max. And as well as, we don't know how that affected the worldwide box office, because I have to imagine that there are places where people could say, like, yes, you could go see Wonder Woman in theaters, or you could wait. And even in areas where they weren't able to get HBO Max, which is most of the world, I think at this point, does not have HBO Max available. I think it affects it when you know that in a week you can just pirate the movie. And because, once you put something online, it can be pirated. A high quality digital version is available to be pirated. And which is different from a movie that normally is just released theatrically, and then you can find these terrible pirated versions online, but they're not very good. But this is very different, because you can get a high quality version. So yes, there was one thing, I don't know where I can find it, but I did see a report that talked about the amount of downloads that HBO Max got, and it as trying to gauge how many people watched Wonder Woman, right? And in my very light amount of research online, I couldn't find where it was, but I did want to talk about it, because I was watching John Campia, and I just wanted to say that is not the amount of people who watched Wonder Woman, because it was something like 550,000 downloads, right? They said that, like, over the weekend, or maybe on Christmas Day or whatever, that HBO Max was downloaded as on mobile, and I'm assuming, let's just assume that means all Apple devices, basically the Apple Store and Google Play, the amount of downloads, maybe not. That's a whole other question. I'll just assume anything comes from Apple Store and in the Google Play Store, and that the HBO Max app was downloaded 550,000 times. That does not mean that they downloaded the app to watch Wonder Woman. It does not mean that all the people who downloaded that at the HBO Max app were new subscribers either. And even if there were new subscribers, doesn't mean that they subscribed specifically to watch Wonder Woman. So to say, I've seen it more than one place talking about how, okay, well, that's how many people that's setting the bar for like HBO Max. Like a movie like Wonder Woman gets you 550 subscribers, but you don't know that, okay? The only people who know about how many new subscribers they got around the time when Wonder Woman 1984 came out is Warner Media, and they're not telling anyone. Now, 550,000 downloads tells you something, but it doesn't tell you. It doesn't necessarily tell you that much. And another reason that I thought of why that isn't necessarily a good figure to go by is you got to take a look at the time when people are downloading. And I think one thing, I don't know how much it would affect the numbers. I don't know if you're talking about like a difference of 100,000 or 50,000 or 5,000, but it's on Christmas Day, right? You know what else happens around that time of Christmas that may affect the amount of downloads of new apps or the amount of downloads of an app? Maybe people getting new devices, people getting new phones as gifts, people going out of their way to buy new stuff. And you know what happens when you get new stuff? You got to download the apps again, unless it came preloaded. So I gotta think that has to affect the difference. And then just the fact that someone downloads the app doesn't mean that it's because they just subscribe to HBO Max and are going to go directly to watch Wonder Woman 1984. There's just so many different factors that saying that even if you could say 550,000 people downloaded HBO Max on the App Store, what does that mean? I don't know what it means. It doesn't really mean anything other than that's the amount of people who downloaded the app. So to try to take that figure and use it as an indication of Wonder Woman 1984's success on HBO Max is just kind of crazy. For the number of reasons that I mentioned, because you don't have to be a new subscriber to download the app. If there was a problem with the app on your device and you deleted it and downloaded it again, I'm assuming that would count as a new download, as you downloading it. Just because even if you are a noob subscriber, you didn't necessarily watch Wonder Woman 1984. That could be you're not interested at all. You just want HBO, and you don't have cable. So that's basically the way you get HBO now. If you don't have cable, is HBO Max. I know there was some confusion when they first came out with it, and they had HBO Go, HBO Now, and HBO Max. But HBO Now is no longer a thing. It's basically just HBO Go and HBO Max. No, I think they kind of got rid of HBO Go too. Anyway, HBO Go was just a way for people who had HBO through their cable, to be able to watch it on an app because they had a cable subscription. HBO Now was HBO's streaming service that they created for HBO, and HBO Max is basically Warner Media's streaming service they made to replace, to be not just HBO but HBO Plus, basically other stuff. And I don't know even why I went on that whole tirade right then. I feel like I kind of lost my place in what I was talking about, but yeah, so that's what HBO Now that confused a lot of people. I know I was going somewhere with that before I was talking about it, but now I've just totally lost my that's how confusing the whole HBO Now, HBO Go, HBO Max is. I totally lost myself. Anyway, are you confused by all the HBOs? I think it is now just HBO Max. I could be wrong, but I think for the most part, if you watch HBO and you're not watching it on your cable, you're streaming it. It's HBO Max, right? Let me know in the comments below if that's not the case, because I'd be very interested if that isn't. I mean, that is in the US. That is. I think HBO Max is pretty much just in the US right now, so I have no idea outside the US. Keep that in mind as well. So yeah, like I was saying before, we just don't have any idea about how well it is doing, you know. And the problem with streaming services like this, even if you are at Warner Media and you have the Excel spreadsheet that shows you the amount of new subscribers every single day, you can't necessarily just take that and say this amount of people subscribed for Wonder Woman. Now, I'm sure they break it down even more than that. You know, they probably look at, because I'm sure they're able to track not just the new subscribers, but how many of those new subscribers, what they watched, right? And I think the problem you run into with these streaming services is that even if, like say 50% of these new subscribers watched Wonder Woman 1984. The question is, if Wonder Woman 1984 wasn't on the platform, would they have still subscribed or not? And I don't know. I think the problem with the whole thing is you're going to get some very interesting accounting, you know. How do these movies actually pay for themselves when they're just on streaming services? It's just kind of a weird question. And yeah, I don't know if it makes any sense. Anyway, I really need to try to break the habit of saying anyway so much. I think that is going to bring me to a close. I've just enjoyed talking about Wonder Woman and my thoughts on it. Let me know what you thought about the film. Did you think it was good? Did you hate it? Where do you fall on it? Or did you think it was just mediocre? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. And then I'm gonna have to click on the thing down here. It's gonna take me a little bit. Okay. And here we go.